اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. Hey guys, welcome to Life on the Blind Side with me, Nabila. So basically, what I will be talking about on this podcast channel is my version of a new life. If you did not see the previous video, I basically talked about how I suffer from intracranial hypertension and how I lost my vision because of it. I am not completely blind. I can still see some things, like I can react to light, so I'll know if a light on or off, and that's probably about it. I could see if you're up close, but I wouldn't see no colors and stuff like that, but I can still see, so alhamdulillah for that. So yeah, that's one of the things we'll be using this podcast channel for. Another thing is to just talk about new experiences. Well, being visually impaired now, everything is a whole new experience. What I am going to talk about today is basically my experience in the hospital and the nursing home, because I have some, well, I think they are funny stories because I laugh my butt off at the time, and I still do now thinking back at it, because like it was, even though the experience was scary, it had some moments that wasn't so scary, and I could have just breathed a little bit of relief. The first story that I want to start with, though, is the first time I got admitted to the hospital. So this was the first time before everything skyrocketed to surgery. When I had got admitted for the first lumbar puncture, the room that I was staying in, it was 4 beds in the room, 2 on each side, and opposite me the bed was empty, but next to that bed it had a elderly lady. We'll call her Miss M. So apparently she was there for a little while, struggling with diabetes and dialysis and stuff like that. I really hope she's okay now, because under everything that I'm going to say now, she was a really sweet lady. So I was admitted the first time for a week, and she was the most entertaining, or I'll say roommate I ever had. The nurses thought she was going to die because of how she was getting on, but I hope she's still alive and still fighting. I got admitted on a Thursday or Friday, and Saturday, while I was chilling out in the room, she just started to call for the nurses. But if you ever hear about the story of the boy who cried wolf, that was basically she just didn't want to be trapped to the bed anymore, and I understand, because like she was there for so long, but she couldn't go anywhere, because she was bedridden. So she just used to call the nurses, and then when the nurses stopped coming every 2 minutes, she used to start to cuss. And it was so funny, because hearing that old lady curse, and all she could say is the F word, left, right, and center, and how this place is nothing and blah 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 blah, is so funny. At this point in time, I couldn't see, so it was hilarious, but I didn't laugh for anybody to see me laughing. And then further down in the week, after she had calmed down from she cursing sprees and stuff like that, she went for dialysis. Now this is the funny part. So within a couple of days, we had gotten another person in the room, but she ended up passing away the night she came in. I hope she's resting in peace now. And so the next day when I woke up, I saw the bed empty, and there was another young girl next to me. She said earlier this morning they came and took the body down to the morgue. So I was like, oh, that's so sad. And she was like, yeah. And then the bed that Miss M was in was also empty. So I was like, oh shucks, did she pass too? And we didn't know anything. So later, well, like a couple hours later, the nurses kept coming in and out of the room, checking my vitals, the girl next to me, her vitals, and stuff like that. But it wasn't my place to ask anything, so I didn't bother asking about Miss M. So when I was speaking to my mom and my stepdad, they had heard how she was carrying about before. So they were asking me about her. So I was like, I think she died. And mommy was like, what? I was like, yeah, Miss M passed away. I'm just like, oh my gosh. Only for the doctors to roll she back in on a bed like 2 hours later. Miss M didn't die. She just went for dialysis. So I tell everybody else she dead. And then when mommy them called back later that night to make sure I was going to sleep and I had done prayer and everything, they hear she quarreling in the back, and I was like, turns out she's not dead. She just went for dialysis. So mommy them started to laugh on the phone and just like, stop assuming people dead in the hospital. Next thing they're really dead. So I was like, yeah, that was the last time I would ever, without even asking what happened to the patient on this bed, I'll never assume that anymore. It was funny at the time, but I don't know. And so that was one of the stories from the first time I was in the hospital. The second story I have from the first time I was in the hospital is that when the doctors came to do my lumbar puncture, right? So you just have to lie down on the opposite side that they're doing it. So like I said, it's the right side that they did my zone. So I was lying on my left side in fetal position. The doctors came in, and it had a really nice, handsome doctor there. I know his name, but I'm not going to say it. He was really nice, like really, really nice. If I had to pick a doctor crush, it'd be him. So anyways, so my first team of doctors, they came in to do my first lumbar puncture. And while they were proceeding it, Mr. Nice Doctor, he's the one that did my lumbar puncture. When they were organizing and when they put in the tube and the needle to drain it, because of how high my pressure was, the fluid came gushing out, right? And the head doctor was so excited because this is the first time to ever see such a high pressure, and he was like, oh my gosh, that's BIH, that's BIH. And I was just lying down on the bed, bawling my eyes out because of my headache. Like I said, it felt like air was being released from my brain. It was so horrible. But he was nice because he was like, everything okay? How your back feeling? I was like, my back not hurting, it's my head. My head is hurting. And like, you know how in them doctors shows, you hear like, whatever medication the patient need, there's be like, get this to her stat. That's like the first time I ever heard it in real life, and I was like, oh my gosh, Grey's Anatomy. So that's another story. And like my first set of doctors, they were so nice. Apparently one of my doctors, I'll call him Dr. T apparently knew me since I was like a baby. So when he saw me in the hospital, he was like, oh my gosh, Nabila, look how big you got. What you doing in the hospital? And then I had to explain my whole story to him. Well, he knew. Obviously, he knew. He had my files. Duh. But like, when I was explaining it properly for the doctors and nurses and stuff like that, he was like, wow. Oh my gosh. But he was so nice. I didn't even know him. I know a doctor in the hospital, but he doesn't work in that section. So like somebody who's a doctor that know me, I know my family, like always made sure that everything was okay and that I was okay, and like if I needed anything and stuff like that. So he was really cool. Yeah, that's the second story there. And then after that lumber puncture, that is when I went home and it just worsened. And then got readmitted with papilledema. And then when I got readmitted, I thought I was like cursed in a way that all the rooms I get put in had a crazy lady. The second time I got admitted, it also had a lady who used to just keep talking about random things. This lady never used to curse though. She used to be praising the Lord, which I didn't mind because, you know, she and all had diabetes and was dealing with dialysis, and she also went home. She went home the day that I was supposed to have surgery. So yeah. And then when I told the mommy that I think I just destined to be in rooms where it have crazy people. Well, I'll call them crazy people, but I know because of their state, they're not crazy. It's just how they express their feelings. So I really hope both of them are doing okay now, because they were really under everything. They were really nice ladies. That's it for the hospital stories, because then after that we moved to the nursing home, and this is when I was high on prescribed drugs. I was like whoopee off her gravel because of how often I was throwing up due to the increase in my the spinal fluid. They had to give me, well, I don't think that was gravel, it was another medication to stop the vomiting, because they didn't want to give me the gravel because it would keep me drowsy. And one of the symptoms of this intracranial hypertension is drowsiness, extreme drowsiness. So to monitor me, they did not want to give me too much of the gravel. When we got admitted to the nursing home, this was after we came back from Port of Spain. They had give me some, I'll just say gravel. I'll try to remember the other name of the medicine. So it's something similar to gravel. They had given me something similar to gravel to go up the highway to Port of Spain, so I don't feel nausea while going up and throw up, because that's the worst thing. Like, your head pounding, you have nothing in your stomach, but every 2 minutes you're throwing up. That's the worst feeling ever. I do not recommend that to anybody. So I was still high off of that drugs that they had given me in the hospital when we got into the nursing home. So when we got to the nursing home and we got admitted, the first thing my aunt would notice is that, okay, so like if you know me personally, and if you had known me in my early teenage years and my mid-teenage years, I was highly obsessed with K-pop or Korean pop music, right? I still listen to it, but I'm not obsessed with it as I was in the past. So the first thing my aunts would notice is that the nurse tending to me at admission was a Korean nurse. So they was like, Nabila, you can't see this, right? But it have a real nice Korean guy who's attending to you. And I was like, what? And I'm blind. I can't see him. It's like, they know, but he's real nice and he's real friendly. I was like, okay. So he did my vitals, he did my paperwork until we went up to the room. He gave me more medication because your girl was starting back to feel her headache and throw up once again. So the high came down and then they put me back up on a high. And then after that, while we were waiting in the triage room to meet with my neurosurgeon, I don't know if I should say this, but like, okay, so I'll say it. When I started to make a lot of jokes, right? So like Like I said in the previous video, the first video I posted was I was just thinking like, am I going to die? Is this my last lap? So while we were in the triage room waiting, I was with two of my aunts because like I said, when mommy found out, she called my close relatives and immediately everyone just came and stayed with me until we figured out what exactly we were going to do. So while in the triage room, I was on the bed, and on either side of me was an aunt, right? Both very, very close to me. So I was lying back and laughing my whoopee butt off because like high on drugs and not thinking straight. Everybody telling me I have good looking nurses and I can't see them. So I had to use my imagination, which really wasn't helping. And then I can't remember the exact words what we was talking about. And then I was like, oh, you just better just organize my white cloth. So like, if you know, I am a Muslim, and when we died, they wrap us in a white cloth, right? Sorry, I'm laughing because it's just so funny. The both of them almost slapped me to sleep because they was like, Nabila, what crap you talking? You're not even that horribly off yet. Stop talking that. Stop calling everything to yourself. But yeah, it was so funny at the point in time. It's so funny now because like I am a person, I don't like to see everybody crying. I don't like that mood. So while everybody was, I mean, yes, I was worrying at the point in time too, but I didn't want to see that, let them see that I was horrified, even though they knew I was deep down. I wanted to make sure, like, you know, I could still make some jokes, make everybody laugh. And I did make everybody laugh, and I made myself laugh, and it was like what we needed at the moment. Even my uncle was on the phone with me and we were talking, and he was still, you know, saying like, he was still keeping my mood up. So like, I'm really 100% grateful for him and for my aunts and for my mom and stepdad, because like I said before, when you're going through something so drastic, and I would use the word drastic because of everything that happened, and you don't know what to do, when your family come together and with you, that's when you just know that, you know, they're there with you, they're not going to leave you alone. So after, like, I think we had to wait for the neurosurgeon because he was performing a surgery at the point in time. So we had to wait like an hour and a half for the surgery to finish. So after that surgery that he was doing, he came and he spoke to us. And the first thing my aunt would say would be like, oh my gosh, Nabila, he looking like McDreamy. And I was like, McDreamy? Grey's Anatomy? He's like, yes, McDreamy. So my aunt was swooning. They still swoon over my neurosurgeon. And if all of us, like all the females, well, most of the females in my family, so like me, my mom, her twin, my sister, we love Grey's Anatomy, right? So for them to actually describe someone as McDreamy or McSteamy, they have to meet the match. So I was like, okay, cool, another doctor that is good looking and I can't see, no problem. And they're just laughing while I telling them that. So we get admitted to the nursing ward. We go up to the room. Everybody said their goodbyes. Mommy stayed with me. That was it for that night. Another story from the nursing home was like, it's a short one. It's just like, I don't remember this. This one nurse, she was really nice. But every time I needed to use the toilet, right, I had to disconnect my IV line that the drips was running through. That's the next thing. I couldn't come out of drips because my body was heavily dehydrated. So I was on drips the entirety of my hospital stays. Which is so sad because like that just goes to show how much of importance is water to the body. So like drink your water, guys. Don't end up in the hospital dehydrated like I did. So yeah. So the nurse one of the nurses, she's a really nice lady. Every time I pressed the bell, the buzzer for them to come, she would come. And normally when they taken out the IV line, right, they're supposed to press down on the spot that it is placed on your hand so the blood from your veins don't drain out and you don't die. This one particular nurse, even though she pressing it down, it used to still have like a little bit in the little plastic. It's like, I want to say a bowl, but it's not a bowl. Like, if you ever get like an IV line and you'd know what I'm talking about. The little space that the line and the tube disconnect to. So, it does have like a little bit of blood there. This one particular nurse, every time she did that, she did not place like a napkin or a cotton ball under it to collect the residue blood, and it had spilled onto my blanket, and mommy had saw, and she was like, "This blasted nurse bloodying up your blanket," and I was like, "Uh-huh." Once again, I was whoopee on drugs and medicine, and like just to not be throwing up. And that happened twice until she realized that, you know what, I should put the napkin first so it could catch the blood. But it was so funny because mommy was like ready to fight the nurse. Not literally, but like blood could wash off, but like, oh, and while I was in the hospital, well, no, sorry, not the hospital, the nursing home, I made mommy leave the TV on Disney Junior all the time. So I was listening to Doc McStuffins, Lion Guard, Mickey Mouse Clubhouse. My favorite was Mickey Mouse Clubhouse. Don't ask me why. It was just like a comfort. So the TV was always on Disney Junior until I fall asleep, and then she would change it and watch something until she get tired and she would take a nap. And then throughout the nursing home stay, we would have the nurses come and visit, try to give me some food. Oh my gosh. And one of my friends, she works at the nursing home as a chef. I love her so much because every day that she was scheduled to work in the kitchen, she would bring my food for me, and she would stay with me for a little bit, and then she would go back. She would always check in on me to make sure everything is okay, to check and see if everything is okay with mommy. And before she leave to go home, she would always say like, okay, well, Nabs, I'll see you tomorrow, or I'll call you, or I'll text you. Like, I love her to death. Until this day, she'll always message and check in with me. So like, I'm like, she's another person I'm grateful for. And then the day of the surgery came. Mommy so signed as a witness for the surgery because I was totally out of it and was really ready for this to be done. The day before surgery, when mommy had got around telling the family and my friends and whoever else she needed to tell that, you know, was really in my life, the day before surgery, everybody came to visit me in the nursing home. I remember somebody saying that one of the attendees thought that it had a Muslim convention in the nursing home, and I was like, oh my gosh, no, they're just here to see me. So like, my friends from the masjid, they came to see me. A lot of my aunts, my sister, my grandma, my cousins, you know, everybody stopped by. Some of mommy close friends and all, they stopped by to just, you know, to say a little prayer and just to ease my mind and stuff like that before I go into surgery. And I was really happy to, well, even though I knew they were there, I couldn't see them properly. I couldn't see them lightly, like the outlines and whatnot. So I just had to, well, a good thing that my brain have like this photo thingy. So like once they tell me a name of a person and I have known you for a while, my brain will automatically assign a face to that name and that voice. So that's basically what I was doing when everybody came to see me. Then the day of surgery came. Surgery was successful, like I said, 100% successful. During the recovery period, like the 2 days I had stayed in the hospital after, well, I think, yeah, the 2 days I stayed in the hospital after surgery, physio wanted me to start back standing and slightly moving about. So the nurses used to help me get to the washroom and back. I remember one night I had called for the nurses. Mommy wasn't in the room, so I was like, okay, she probably just went for a walk or whatever. The nurse came, took me to the washroom, and while she was walking back, apparently my mother was having a family reunion in the hall because she bunks up some long lost family or friend of my deceased grandfather that makes she out. I don't even know how to make her out because she wears the niqab, that's the veil over the face, so only her eyes was showing. So I have no idea how they made her out. So they stayed in the waiting area just talking for like an hour or so, and then she came back in the room and just like, oh, you're awake. I was like, yeah, I went to use the washroom and stuff, and yeah, you're talking to these people about papataya. So I was like, she was like, yeah. So she had a whole family reunion, and I remember I had met this really nice lady, and she was telling me about her story, and it was like really more tragic than mine, or as equal to as tragic as mine. And she was like, don't ever keep your head down, always keep your head up, and always keep praying because God is always on your side. And that's so true, because if I had given up on anything, or if I had stopped praying and stopped thanking and asking God, to heal me and whatnot, I probably wouldn't have gotten this far. I probably would have slipped back into depression. It would have been horrible. So I'll always remember her words. That's basically the stories I have from my hospital and nursing home days. Oh, I get the scratch of riding in an ambulance off my bucket list because I rode in 2 different ambulances, whatever the plural of ambulance is, unless it's like sheep and it's just like one sheep, many sheep, ambulance. I rode in 2 ambulance. It's not as fun as it sounds because the riders be bumpy, like real bumpy, but it was an interesting time of my life, I will say. It really was an interesting turning point of my life. And maybe it is a new starting point too, who knows. A lot of things could come from that situation, like for example me starting this podcast, just to talk about anything to nothing. It's like a free space. I could talk about hobbies, my experiences, my new life, my cats. So it's like a turning point, I guess. So that is basically the most interesting stories of being in a hospital for approximately a month. It's been more or less 5 months since I had the surgery, and I will say my eyesight is improving with the shunt that they had put in. So that's that. I really did not know what I was going to talk about this week, but I am going to try to post a video. Would this count as a video? A video every week, just talking about things that happen, or just like my new hobbies or activities and stuff like that. Because like when you get struck striked, something. When you get, I don't even want to say attacked because it's not going to sound right. Um, when something like this happens to you, your life basically turns an entire 360. Like, I can no longer keep myself occupied in ways that I would have. So this is a way of me keeping myself occupied. So that's it. I hope you guys had an amazing week, and I shall see you guys next week. Bye.